Hi and welcome to DevOpsCon. I have Anton Weiss with me. Hi Anton.
Hi.
How was your session?
I loved it. I hope the audience loved it. That's the important thing.
I'm sure they did. So a true DevOps transformation consists of a lot of elements, and culture seems to be at the center of the transformation. So I ask you, what does a true DevOps transformation require?
Ooh. Well, at the session, I just tried to outline the things that the leadership has to do, first of all, in order to enable such a transformation. It definitely has to start with leadership. Now, throughout the practice, the career, we've seen DevOps actually starting from the bottom. Okay, because originally it was a grassroots movement, and in many cases it all started with engineers starting to automate a couple of things, trying to change the way they collaborate. But there's never a true transformation if the leadership doesn't become a part of it. So yeah, the real full-scale transformation should start with changing the culture, with management actually accepting the change that comes from the bottom and allowing for it to happen.
So you're saying that a true DevOps transformation only begins at the top, so not top-bottom, not bottom-up, or both perhaps?
I wish it was that easy. It generally starts from the bottom, but the management, the leadership, has to be there to identify the signs of it starting up, and it has to provide support, because otherwise it will never become a concise, definitive transformation process. We see this at some of our customers, whereas what happens is each department tries to implement their own kind of DevOps, and everybody starts arguing who is responsible for DevOps here. And suddenly you have all different types of DevOps in the same organization, instead of having one picture, one story, one single DevOps story, because it all has to start there, from having a DevOps story. When we talk about culture, it seems to be something complicated, because culture is something hard to define. Like, we have all these complicated definitions, but if it's taken to its bare essentials, I think culture is just the story you tell. So it's the task for the leadership, for the management, to compile the story. It doesn't have to be the storyteller itself. It can find the storytellers in the organization, but it has to back up the story.
And how can the management be convinced to be part of the transformation and to support the transformation?
Well, the thing is, what we are seeing lately is the management doesn't need to be convinced. There's a lot of buzz around DevOps, like we have all these DevOps conferences, and the management already starts to realize that this is something they need to do. They need to restructure their systems, because their customers won't want to work with them if they're not modern, if they're not agile, if they don't have scalable architectures. So they realize they need to do DevOps. The problem is that they don't know how. And that's what we as a consulting agency see. We have managers coming to us saying, we want to do DevOps, how do we get engineers on board? Whereas previously the question was, we're engineers, how do we get management on board? Okay, so the question is now upside down somehow.
And how can we become DevOps enablers? I've been hearing this term, DevOps enablers, quite a lot in the past few years. And how can we become DevOps enablers?
Well, I personally think that the term comes from the fact that originally DevOps was talking about development and operations collaborating in a different way. But with time, it has led to suddenly DevOps teams appearing in many places. And by many, this was seen as a sign of a problem, because we had those silos before that, the devs and the ops, and suddenly we have a new silo in the organization, which is called DevOps. And they're responsible for the DevOps in the organization. So instead of calling it a DevOps team or DevOps engineers, like giving birth to a whole new profession that's now suddenly responsible for DevOps, whereas DevOps is actually how your whole organization should be functioning. So instead of calling it that, we're trying to call it the DevOps enablement. Those are usually the people responsible for the process automation, for enabling the collaboration and communication patterns that are associated with DevOps. Okay, those are the enablers. The people who have probably done this in another organization, or the people who are ready to learn about this and take upon them specifically this function of bringing in the tools, of integrating the tools, of changing how people collaborate.
And what are the challenges that prevent us from having a perfect or almost perfect DevOps implementation? Or the gaps, if there are no challenges?
Well, the challenges are the same challenges that always exist when we try to change existing human organizations. We're all reluctant to change. The example I like to give is my wife. She's a shiatsu therapist, and she has customers coming to her and saying, my back hurts, or I can't sleep. And she tells them, well, I can provide therapy, but in order for this to go away, you need to change your diet and do more sports and go to bed earlier and abandon alcohol or whatever. And people suddenly say, wow, I really have to do all these things? Can't you just do a few tricks and it will all go away? So the main problem is we're actually very reluctant to change. And this reluctance mainly comes out of our fear of failure. So these are the main challenges. And again, the leadership at an organization plays a very important role here by providing a safe environment where we're less scared of failing and more incentivized to experiment. And we're ready to embrace change because it's fun, because there is a story out there in our organization that tells that change is fun, that change will make our life better.
But at the same time, DevOps is not a magic bullet, so one should implement it correctly. I mean, just saying that you want to do it doesn't mean that you will do it. So what's your tip, let's say, number one tip for helping companies to have a smoother transformation, DevOps transformation?
Number one tip. Understand the why. Greg was also talking about this in his keynote today, Greg Bledsoe from Accenture. It all starts with why. There's also a book by a guy named Simon Sinek. I think that's what it's called, Start with Why. Like with any transformation, you need to understand why you want to do this. And what I see is that putting business goals as the reason for the DevOps transformation is the wrong thing to do. Because this will lead to people being incentivized for incorrect stuff. So you need to create another why, which is the vision of a better company, better world, better work environment. Along these lines, but it has to be very authentic and very specific to what you're doing.
Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks, Gabriela. I'm enjoying it.